Greetings, captains. It's Admiral Revan here. Hope you're doing well. And what is behind me over here? Well, it is a ship. What kind of ship? Yes, well, we're going to talk about that ship right behind me. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, that is the USS Wisconsin. Yes, it is a Tier 10 American battleship, Iowa class. Did you know? But this is going to be interesting. For 13.3 for the Dockyard. So, ladies and gentlemen, that this Dockyard is going to be very interesting in going forward. And I have to say that I'm pretty excited about it. So we're going to dive right into this. I will admit though, folks, for the first time when we're doing the Dockyard missions and everything like that for the warships, the cinematic video is very nice. I have to say that every time I see the cinematic video for the first time for the Dockyards, it actually brings back good vibes and good memories because it's actually pretty cool. I love seeing, you know, things being constructed for the first time. Now, I will admit though that there's a couple of things that the Tier 10 Wisconsin for the Iowa class warship itself that gives a bit of a description about the ship and a little bit of history, but you notice in the description of the video here that you'll notice that you have less than 61 days to complete the warship freely with the combat missions throughout the whole Dockyard process. Otherwise, you know, that you have to use the balloons to complete the ship in the next, you know, X amount of days before 90 days before the ship, you know, Dockyard is actually gets removed. So basically we've got less than 90 days from now, folks, to get in there, do what we can to get this warship. So with less than 61 days right now in terms of doing the combat missions, there's a lot involved. Now we're going to be talking about that more in depth in this video about the combat missions and how it works. But as you can see, there's some good rewards that you can get through the Dockyard at the moment. And honestly, by the 30th stage, that's when you completely get the Wisconsin and you get it in your port. Now on the 20th phase, there's a ship that you can get, and that is called the West Virginia 44. Now, if you got the West Virginia 44 and you hit the 20th stage, it gives you a bonus 3 stages, which is very nice. And I think that, you know, from my side of the fence, is actually not too bad at all. Now, if you don't have the West Virginia 44, that means you still have to do the grind in the ways and keep going through it, regardless of which. Now, the starter packs, I have to say that, you know, doing the starter pack at 3,200 doubloons is actually not a bad idea. But if you're working full time and you don't have the time to do the grind and stuff like that, unfortunately, there is a bit of a drawback. So basically the drawback is that what I'm about to say here is that in terms of the combat missions, I'm going to show you the combat missions and explain why. So the combat missions are a little bit, you know, like full on. So when you go here and look in terms of the Dockyard, there's a whole heap of missions that you have to go through. Now, honestly, asymmetric battles is your saving grace. I'm going to tell you right now, and no mucking around. Asymmetric battles is going to be your saving grace throughout the whole process. Now, there's a whole things that you can do with other game modes, like for example, brawls, random battles, operations. Now, keep in mind though, when you look at operations as such, you have to look at very carefully about certain orange or red dots. Now, I have to admit, I'm looking at this and it's got a bit of description here. You know, operations to gauge mission progress, half of your performance achieved in operations is taken into account. So basically what it's saying is that if you did X amount of stuff, you know, in terms of rewards, only half of that is going to be rewarded towards the progress bar. So I have to say that's a little bit downside, but you know, like I can understand why, but in all seriousness though, there's a lot of stuff to take in consideration here. So all right, first and foremost, that there's a lot of stuff you have to take consideration when you're doing the grind for these warships, and it's good to do it with friends. And honestly, the best way you can do it is that if you're a streamer, you can do it, you know, rock up with a lot of X amount of hours per day and just have fun. Now for me, I do about like 3 to 4 hours worth, and if you have good matches all round, you will actually rock up a lot of good damage, and this is a good example of an opportunity in itself for you to do. Now if you feel that you want to do simple achievements, like for example through submarines, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, or even carriers, to get your ribbons in astromatic battles is actually well recommended for you to do so. Some people say co-op battles is better, but hey, I mean, like, whichever works for you, it works, right? So as you progress with your in terms of your dockyard stuff and you keep going through it, let's just be realistic with the combat missions that you have to do through the dockyard. It is actually it gets pretty much full on with all these extra rewards you have to do. I'm just like looking at it right now. Some of these ribbons and stuff like that is not too bad, but let me say when you get down to maybe around about the 5th, no, maybe the 6th, depending on what it is, you'll notice that you get a lot of HP damage and stuff like that, potential damage. Oof, that's pretty full on. But like when you look at this sort of thing, it's not going to be done overnight that very quickly. Now I have to say, I have to stress this to a lot of people out there, that when you're grinding for the Wisconsin for the first time, the best way to handle this, ladies and gentlemen, is to actually look through the dockyard in terms of the starter packs. And I will tell you this right now, in terms of the starter packs, you will have a lot of opportunity to decide what is best for you. Now the best way to understand is that in terms of the starter packs, you got like 2 options, which is the smooth sailing and the full ahead. Now both of them very good. Okay, now I'm gonna be honest with you, with the smooth sailing 3200 doubloons is actually very nice, because Wargaming says you can pretty much get the ship virtually for free to Wisconsin for free. Now I have to say that it's not a bad thing. So yeah, what you have to do is that you have to really grind very hard to get to stage 20 and get the West Virginia, and if you got it already, you're pretty much looking like in the home run to quickly get the warship that you want. Now if you're working full-time and you're doing a lot of working hours, like at least more than 10 hours a day, and you don't have time to really sit down in front of the computer for at least 3 to 4 hours a night per night, well then you're in a situation where that you probably find it easier to go ahead and buy both packs with the smooth sailing and the full ahead. So you got 11 stages. Now if you've got 11 stages, that means you got 9 stages left to go to get the West Virginia 44, which is not too bad. Now just adding the cost of that is 15,200 doubloons. Now if you were to do the full scale finish, the fine touches of completing the warship construction as such, well, I mean, like from throughout all the construction you're going to be doing, I have to say that 18,900 doubloons will take you to the West Virginia 44 from stage 11 all the way through to stage 20. That's no joke right there. Now to completely build the warship all the way through from start to finish, I have to say that it's actually pretty damn right full on. I mean, like it's quite expensive. I think you end up being close to nearly 40,000 doubloons, I believe, just to complete the ship from start to finish. But it is like not cheap by any means whatsoever to complete the ship from start to finish. I have to say that the ship is not cheap to completely get in your port, but it is well worth it regardless of which. But there are some people out there who have said to me that the Wisconsin is actually better off in some ways, that you're in a better position to play the Iowa class rather than playing the Wisconsin. Now, I have to say why. Now, the Iowa class is cheaper in terms of tech tree, and you're probably better off playing the Iowa than the Wisconsin if you can't afford it, because at least you know it's permanently there. The Wisconsin itself, it's the only good thing about it is the extra perk that it has with the guns, and honestly, the nice fancy ass camera it has, I love it. I don't get me wrong, I love it, but you know, there's one person said to me very openly that he preferred to have the Iowa rather than the Wisconsin. Now, there are some people out there who have bought the Missouri, and as we all know, that the Missouri is a premium warship, and it's a very unique warship these days, and it is not that easy to obtain anymore. So pretty much when you think about having the Missouri itself, well, you know, it is what it is. I mean, that's no doubt about it, all right? So the Missouri, the benefit about the Missouri, it has radar, okay? And it's an Iowa class, but it's also tier 9. The Iowa class itself is tier 9, and then the only thing different about the Wisconsin is it's tier 10, and it has a, you know, fancy mechanic with its guns, and at the same time, it actually packs a lot of punches. Now, I will admit, when I first time played the Wisconsin, it does a lot of damage. It can rock up a numerous amount of damage. It can take a lot of hits as well too, if you play it correctly. And the only thing I liked about the Wisconsin is that, well, it's a nice unique warship. It's fast and maneuverable. When you start the engines and tell it to do full reverse, it's pretty quick in responding. Aside from that, well, to tell you the truth, I mean, like, the only thing I love about the Wisconsin though is that it's an Iowa class warship. It's a symbolic warship, and that is pretty much it. I mean, like, the camo itself, now I will admit, the camo itself is mind-blowing. I have to say that the war paint camo that has been equipped onto this Wisconsin is actually very nice. I actually love it. I actually think it's actually pretty cool. Now, if you don't like fancy camos, there is the default camo version of this, and the default camo of the ship isn't too bad. Let's just be realistic. The default camo itself is actually not too bad. But, you know, each to its own. I mean, like, everyone has their own preference, and honestly, I just enjoy it. I just enjoy it pretty much overall. So, is the Wisconsin worthwhile the grind to get it? Now, again, 3200 doubloons sounds great, but the combat missions, in terms of the grinding for it and what you have to read carefully through it, I would recommend you check it first and give it a good go and see how you go in terms of completing, you know, the grind in the next, you know, couple months before you make your judgment call. And then you can make your judgment call afterwards and think about it, what are you going to do with it. Because after 61 days of playing the combat missions and you reach the end of it and you go like, okay, I only have, like, say, less than 10 stages left to go, you probably would be happy to spend, you know, $100, for example, to get a nice decent pack of doubloons and go ahead and complete the rest in doubloons. That's up to you. I mean, like, I'll be honest with you. But the problem is, though, as you know, Wargaming and other people have said, that you can actually complete the Dockyard if you put your mind to it and do the grind, do the time, and you can get it for 3200 doubloons. Now, it sounds great, it's all well and good. That's if you got the West Virginia 44 as well too. But even if you don't have the West Virginia 44, I have to say that you have to work very hard to do the extra stages, which is extra 3 stages. But either way, I mean, it's good. in some ways and bad in other ways too. So you have to weigh up the pros and cons. Now, the thing is that I know that for me, if I want to grind on my Asia account right now, even though I do have the Wisconsin in my port right now as a CC for the game itself. Now, if I were to go ahead, do the grind, do the time, and do it what I have to do, if I do get the Wisconsin at the end of the 30 stages, and I get back into my port, well, the good thing is I get over 34,000 doubloons back, and it's actually not bad. And if you think about it, I think that's, you know, nice, you know, self-reward in itself. That's if, you know, like, I can do it, that's all. But the thing is though, that if you have multiple accounts on the game itself, think about what is more important to you in terms of prioritization, and just focus on what you can do, and then decide after the 60th day. So basically, after 2 months of grinding in the game itself, that's when you decide after that whether or not you can get the Wisconsin into your port after that moment. Remember that you have less than 30 days after that just to buy it outright with the balloons and just, you know, complete the whole thing. So I would recommend, again, do the time, do the grind with the combat missions, and hope for the best. Now, if you're in a situation that you believe that you did the best you can with the Dockyard missions and everything, and you can't get into the last 2 or 3 stages and complete it in time, well, I mean, like, yeah, at least you give it a good crack at it, but at the same time that the rewards are nice, and that is pretty much the gist of it. But yeah, I know that people, you know, did say that the Wisconsin is not exactly that great, and I have to say about that in some ways that, you know, if RNG is pretty good in your favor, you can do a lot of damage. I have to say that I have had some random matches and battles, both in random and as well as in astrometric battles, that I have scored some phenomenal amount of citadels in game. Especially the one time I hit the Montana at extreme long range and scored a devastating citadel on it, and I could not believe it for the first time. But there are some good moments in the game as well too, that if you need to move your ship in a hurry, at least you know you can escape around the corner quite well in time. There are some good moments in this game, I have to say. Like, there's good opportunities with the Wisconsin, but just like the Iowa class, just like the Montana, if you are on a budget, I would stick with the Iowa. If you already got the Missouri as a collector's items, you're not going to see anything really different. The only perk difference is radar is not there, but you have this cool benefit and gun, you know, ability on the Wisconsin, and it's actually very nice. But then again, with the Iowa class itself, it's basically a discounted version of the Wisconsin and the Missouri anyway. That's it. Anyways, folks, I'm gonna leave it as that. If you want my honest opinion about the Wisconsin is worth all getting. Don't get me wrong, I love it, I enjoy it, and that's the main thing. I have played it with my friends and also showed it online on a stream. I had a great time with it, and honestly, it's fun and engaging and experience warship. Overall, in summary, if it's worthwhile the grind for you, go for it. If it's not, don't worry, don't stress about it. But at the end of the day, just have fun, enjoy the rewards, what you got in the Dockyard in a way, regardless of which. But at the end of the day, the rewards are never endless. Have fun, my friends, and have a good time grinding in the Wisconsin. But yeah, thanks for watching this video. Feel free to give a like, subscribe to the channel and everything, and feel free to comment about it and enjoy. But until then, stay safe and take care, folks, and enjoy the Dockyard missions in 13.3, and let us know how you go. Until then, action stations.